Hi, my name's Emma Tatlow. I'm the Chief Executive of Active Lincolnshire. Thank you for listening to this presentation today about the Tackling Inequalities funded programme. In the presentation today, I'm going to tell you about Active Lincolnshire, give you more information about the Tackling Inequalities Fund, including the target audience that the programme is reaching, what we know about our target audiences here in Lincolnshire, how we're going to work together to deliver the Tackling Inequalities programme, including processes and procedures, delivery partners, monitoring and reporting, timescales and communications, and then we'll touch on the outputs and outcomes of the project. A little bit about Active Lincolnshire. We're a county-wide organisation, a charity that advocates, supports and enables opportunities for everyone in Lincolnshire to be physically active. We know that Lincolnshire is one of England's most inactive counties, and we need to work together to increase physical activity levels to improve the health and well-being of our population. We support communities right across the county, from the inactive people to the very active people. We work with activity providers, clubs, community groups, coaches, primary schools, secondary schools, a range of partners across the county that are reaching our local people. We also deliver Sport England funded programmes, some of the things you might have heard of: the County School Sport Games competition, the Satellite Clubs programme, the Lincolnshire Sport and Physical Activity Awards, the Lincolnshire Elite Athletes programme, and the Club and Activity Finder. We facilitate, enable and work in partnership and collaborate with partners to ensure that we can influence agendas across the county to help people have opportunities to be more physically active. If you want to know more about the organisation, have a look at our website, activelincolnshire.com. So the Tackling Inequalities programme is Sport England funding that has been allocated to Active Lincolnshire. We will be distributing out that funding to community groups and organisations across Lincolnshire that can help us encourage people to be more physically active at this time. The purpose of the Tackling Inequalities Fund is to ensure that we're reducing or helping to reduce the negative impacts that COVID-19 has brought to our communities and the widening of inequalities that we have seen the pandemic have by dealing with some of those here and now issues. We'll reach the audiences that are most in need at this time with physical activity content. That might be by you adapting your existing services or offers, or maybe by thinking about what new offers you can provide to take physical activity content and ideas to people in the community that you're already working with. We can support people where there's been a reduction in capacity, perhaps because of the fragile nature of community bodies and voluntary organisations who have struggled for funding at this time. If you're working in those more marginalised communities and again reaching people with physical activity content and ideas, we might be able to help you. We want to ensure that the community groups and the infrastructure is there and is able to recover at the appropriate time post-COVID. We'll also use the funding to strengthen relationships between cross-sector partners and community bodies and find new ways of creatively working together that we hope will be sustainable beyond the life of this funding. This is lottery funding via Sport England, and we are able to work with registered charities, not-for-profit organisations, community interest companies, social enterprises, companies limited by guarantee, charitable incorporated organisations and registered societies. We're looking to work with people who have a track record of delivery and who are already delivering to the target audiences that I'm going to explain shortly. If, as an organisation, you are already in receipt of Sport England funding, we can give you further Sport England funding so long as the requirement and the outcomes of that particular fund will be different to that of Tackling Inequalities. And if for some reason your organisation doesn't meet the criteria, or we find that we're unable to fund you, we want to work with you to talk about how we can collaborate in other ways outside of Tackling Tackling Inequalities Fund. In terms of how we envisage the funding being used, we're seeking creative, innovative and meaningful ways to work collaboratively with a range of cross-sector partners and service providers to reach our target audiences. The fund might be used to support service providers and community groups to amplify or develop programmes that keep communities active in this time. It might be around cross-sector collaborations. There could be county-wide solutions. There could also be very locally focused and targeted interventions on a particular target audience or a geographical area. The funding could also be used to provide training and advice to cross-sector organisations and frontline staff to ensure that they have the knowledge and that they're well equipped with the information required to help people be more physically active at this time. How we'll work. We're looking to collaborate, enable, support and lead the delivery of the Tackling Inequalities programme throughout Lincolnshire by working on an insight-driven approach. We've got lots of information about our county. We also want to learn from you. What do you know about the target audiences that you've been working with and reaching out to at this really difficult time? We want to collaborate, work with people who are best placed to deliver the intervention, work swiftly and effectively to make sure that we're responding to those really immediate here and now needs of our communities. We'll be transparent, we'll work with integrity, we'll be proactive, creative and flexible, and we want to continue to look ahead to see how the partnerships could develop after the immediate funded activity. The target audiences that the Tackling Inequalities programmes will focus on must at least reach one of the primary audiences outlined here. That's lower socioeconomic groups, Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities, disabled people, people with long-term health conditions. Every project that successfully receives funding will need to carefully articulate how they're reaching at least one of these target audiences in the work that you're already undertaking. The secondary audience could be any of the other primary audiences listed above, or women and girls who we know tend to be less likely to participate in activity, older people, and actually in Lincolnshire that's over 55s, and our children and young people and families, again particularly from the lower socio-economic groups. We know from Lincolnshire that these audiences are already inactive. This data is from pre-COVID, so it's very likely now from the national research that's available that some of these people will already be less active as a result of COVID and the various challenges and circumstances that this has brought to our population. We also know that there's a range of inactivity levels across Lincolnshire, and we hope that the Tackling Inequalities Fund will reach to all corners of our county by targeting very carefully on the audiences most in need in all of our local areas. In terms of how we're going to roll out the Tackling Inequalities Fund, this is phase one, so this is the first part of our conversation with you all. We want to collaborate, we want to listen, we want to learn, we want to share ideas, and we want to be able to support you to maybe think differently about how you can take physical activity content to our target audiences. So we're hosting a range of webinars, we're having lots of conversations across lots of different networks, county-wide, local areas, and also themed groups. We've already had lots of ideas come forward around providing digital online content to target audiences. So we'll be having a separate conversation about that to make sure that we're not funding lots of very similar projects that are planning to achieve the same outputs. As a result of this first phase, we intend to have a list of projects and we'll work through with those project leads on turning them into something that could receive funding. So the second phase will be about shaping those projects. The value of each project could range from £500 to £10,000. So it could be from a relatively small intervention that might see things, physical activity content being taken out to people that you're already visiting, up to a larger scale programme of £10,000. There is no formal grant funding application process, but we will work with you to understand what the project is, who it's going to reach, how it's going to be delivered, and that it can be delivered by October 2020. We'll map all of the project ideas against the various audiences, the various capabilities and the various outcomes. And we'll work with those successfully funded projects to understand what outputs and monitoring will be in place. We want to keep this as light touch as possible, but we also want to make sure that we're learning and capturing all the great things that will happen through the delivery of the Tackling Inequalities Fund. So we envisage that throughout from July onwards, we'll have multiple partners working across the county to deliver a range of projects that are reaching our target audiences. And those projects will be taking physical activity content in new ways to the people in Lincolnshire who need it most. Then in phase 3, this is an ongoing process for us. It's about reviewing, evolving, learning. We might learn that some things don't work. We might learn that some things really do work and we want to do more of the same. We'll continue to have conversations with you. We'll have conversations to see if there's an opportunity to roll out any of the successful projects post-COVID and what resource that might need. We want to build on these partnerships and collaborations for future and continuing activity. We want to learn more about our audiences, about the wider network of organisations like yourselves who are working firsthand with the communities in Lincolnshire. And we want to share best practice, learn from one another, not only in this county but across the country as Tackling Inequalities is rolled out nationwide. We want to work with you in a collaborative way, so this is all about us communicating, collaborating, developing together, delivering in partnership and learning. It's not just a transactional relationship whereby we'll be distributing some money. We really see this as something that's going to require us and you to work really closely together in keeping conversation as we go through this process. In terms of the decision-making process, we'll be able to make decisions on a rolling basis. Sport England will need to sign off every project proposal that we put forward from Lincolnshire, and the decisions are going to be based around whether or not the investment impacts on at least one of those priority audiences. Is there a real here and now requirement to support these people pre-October? And has that requirement risen as a result of COVID? Will the investment help a community group to survive or connect to our target audiences? Will the investment lead to physical activity taking place between now and October 2020? We need to be sure that we're working with trusted community organisations that have adequate safeguarding policies and procedures in place. If you have any questions on this at all, the team at Active Lincolnshire can help. There are some things we can't support. This is lottery funding, so any organisation wanting to work with us must be able to receive lottery funding. There are certain items that aren't eligible for lottery funding, and that includes activities or costs that the government are already supporting, such as the Business Rate Relief Scheme. Any capital works can't be supported through this fund. We can't support activities promoting religious or political beliefs, anything that directly benefits an individual, any private business or profit-making organisation unless they're a social enterprise or a community interest company, sole traders or partnerships, or projects that already have Sport England funding for the same purpose. Once we've identified the successful projects and worked with you on the project plan, we will also support through communications. We would expect the applicant to be responsible for promoting their scheme to their local audiences in their area to ensure that the physical activity content or whatever the programme might be is rolled out in your local communities and reaches the people that it's intended for. We will support by bringing together Tackling Inequalities projects to see where we can learn from each other, by promoting good news stories, best practice, examples, learnings, and rolling out the wider communications as and when required within the county. So what's going to happen next? We've got a couple of weeks now for questions, discussions, idea generation. So this is really about thinking about what you can do in your day-to-day running of your community organisation that might encourage people to become more physically active. This scheme could be relevant to people that are operating food banks, for example, that are operating other community support schemes, that are delivering programmes around mental health, dementia, care for the elderly, the care sector, children in school holidays. There are no end of opportunities and no end of groups out there doing amazing work at the moment, reaching our communities, and we're here to help you with that. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be hosting follow-up calls, mapping those projects, collating the ideas and creating projects that we see can really work and be implemented. Those projects will be delivered between July and October. We're here to help and support you, but you're also able to go away and deliver the project as you know most works within your particular area of expertise. We anticipate programmes to be completed in October, at which point we'll look at the programme evaluation, the wrap-up, and seeing if there are opportunities for us to continue this on in a sustainable way beyond the life of the Tackling Inequalities Funds. I hope that gives you a useful insight into what Tackling Inequalities is all about. We appreciate there's a lot of information there. Each region of Lincolnshire is allocated a member of the Active Lincolnshire team to be your local area lead. If you don't know who your local area lead is, please have a look on the website activelincolnshire.com. You can contact them for further questions. You can also contact the Tackling Inequalities Programme Lead at Active Lincolnshire, Navaz. Navaz can be reached by email on navaz.sutton@activelincolnshire.com. You can also contact myself, Emma Tatlow, via email emma.tatlow@activelincolnshire.com. We look forward to having conversations with you and to seeing what we can do to help the communities most in need in Lincolnshire during this challenging time. Thanks so much for listening.